Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're just gonna, I think Mark will wait maybe just a minute or two just to wait for people to log on. We're also live on Facebook as well, so we'll wait for people just to log on to the session here.
Yeah, terrific. That's great. Cold enough for you, Sandra?
Yeah, it's really cold. It's been actually very cold for the last couple of days.
Yeah,
It's sunny outside, so it's very deceiving.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in Ottawa on the weekend for a bit. I don't know if I told you that, but
Oh, yeah.
it was it was minus 12 or 13 when we got there Saturday night, and
Mhm.
then but it was supposed to go down to like minus 25 tonight. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it's very cold.
No, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Anyways, stay warm. Hopefully everybody's bundled in somewhere. And welcome to our Facebook Live audience as well.
Yeah, I'll be monitoring that as well too here on my phone. So
Awesome.
just to make sure, yeah. So do you want to wait maybe another minute or
Yeah.
yeah? Okay, so
Sarah just posted about nice and cold to make snow for us skiers. So hopefully you're getting some good snow. I heard this guy on the radio the other day. He's like, I'd rather have minus 20 than plus 30. And I'm like, whoa, like that. So, such an extreme, but I'd rather take the plus 30. I don't know. What about you, Sandra?
yeah, warmer weather for me too. I don't know if I would want like it to be too hot. I feel like fall weather and spring weather sometimes is like a good balance between the winter and the summer.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just also, I guess for anybody, they want to post a note as well. I know you're going to talk about that too, Sandra, but for anybody that wants to post a note, say hello, whatever, it'd be great to hear from you. I see recognize some names here that are on today. So good. Thanks for being on, spending half an hour with us as well.
So it's 2:02. So if you don't mind, Mark, I'll just maybe do the brief intro here.
For sure.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar session of the new year. My name is Sandra, and I'm the marketing coordinator at TorontoJobs.ca. And joining me is Marc Belaiche. He is a CPA CA, and he's the president of TorontoJobs.ca. And today he'll be discussing Canada's job numbers and how it can impact your recruiting in 2022. So just a couple of things before I stop sharing my screen. We will be taking questions at the end of the session, so probably about the last 5 minutes. So if you have a question, you can post them into the chat, and Mark will do his best to answer them at the end. And we also are recording the session as well. So if you want to go back and take a look at, some of the points that Mark had mentioned throughout the duration of the presentation or session rather, we can share the link with you if you send us an email. We'll just be uploading it on YouTube as well. So even if you head on to just our YouTube page, you'll find the upload there. Other than that, I hope everyone enjoys the presentation, and I'll pass it over to you, Mark, and I'll be back near the end just to help moderate everything.
Terrific. Thanks, Sandra, for organizing today's event. Thanks, everybody, for being here today as well. My background is in recruiting. I've been in the recruiting space for just over 25 years now. Hard to believe. It's been an interesting ride, especially in the last year, or I guess the last 2 years now, coming up in March. But I always say, I've seen everything, but no, I've never seen this before. And I've seen markets where it's been hot candidate market and low supply, and vice versa. So this has definitely been an interesting time. So as far as the agenda, I'm going to run through some thoughts and observations on the jobs landscape in Canada and into the US as well. Just a little bit on the US I'll touch on. I'll be sharing my thoughts on some of the current trends and how it's affecting how we recruit. And the webinar is going to take about half an hour. And as Sandra said, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. So the first probably 10 minutes or so, I'm going to talk a lot about some of the numbers and just kind of share with you what some of the highlights are of the job numbers that are out there right now. And it may be a little bit technical, it might be a little bit boring, especially if you're not a numbers person, and you probably say, Mark, just get to the points that you wanted to make on this. But I think it's important to have a good understanding of the landscape numbers wise. And the numbers that I'm going to share with you are through Statistics Canada that gets released each month. One of my favorite days, in a weird kind of way, is the first Friday of the month, typically the first Friday of the month, when the labor force survey comes out from Statistics Canada. It comes out at 8:30 in the morning. And if they're really great, then the media will cover it on the evening news. And if they're really bad, then they will also cover it on the evening news. If they're kind of so-so, not much coverage. So I'm going to give you a bunch of numbers just to give you some context. So just bear with me, maybe jot some numbers down. Maybe you'll hear something that you kind of, hey, does this make sense? Not that I'm an expert on what Statistics Canada reveals, but I've been tracking these numbers for many, many years. So first off, employment, that's the number that everybody kind of looks at and where things are at. So 55,000 new jobs in December in terms of growth. The unemployment rate, 5.9%. To give you a little bit of context, just before the pandemic, we were at 5.7% back in February of 2020. And just after the pandemic in May of 2020, we reached over 13% in Canada as an unemployment rate. So it's definitely come down a lot over the last year and a half. Now, the adjusted unemployment rate, which includes people who wanted a job but did not look for one, is actually 7.6% in December. And but that actually, we get back to where we were before the pandemic for this indicator. So jobs wise, in terms of the 55,000 jobs in December, it's actually really good. In a regular time, 55,000 jobs would be amazing. And it is double what the economists expected. Now, keep in mind that all these numbers that I'm going to share with you were from mid-December, before the current restrictions and Omicron. So we should see some job losses when the January job numbers come out. So for example, Cineplex had 6,000 temporary layoffs after these numbers came out in December, or for December. Full-time employment, which is always a good sign, better than part-time, 123,000 new jobs in December. And the majority of those jobs increase were among men of core working age. And that's 25 to 54. That went up by 95,000. And part-time employment declined by 68,000. So we're replacing some part-time jobs with some full-time jobs, which is always good from an economy perspective. Now, looking at some of the industries that went up, 50% of growth of jobs were in construction, and 57% of growth of jobs in December was in the public sector. So read that as government, and 31% in education. Now, we lost jobs in other areas, including finance, insurance, and real estate. Now, among workers who worked at least half their usual hours, the proportion of people who work from home is about 24%, and that hasn't changed that much over the last few months. In fact, it's stayed within a certain range since August of 2021. So we've been at this for about 4 or 5 months, looking at how many people are working from home. At the height of the pandemic, there were 40% of Canadians that were working from home. And now it's settling in around 23%, so 24%. So about a quarter of Canadians are working from home. Now, another stat that I look at is the number of Canadians that have been unemployed for 27 weeks or more. And this has been coming down quite a bit. We were at 500,000 at the kind of the peak of where the pandemic hit. We're now still at 290,000 people. These are 290,000 Canadians who have been unemployed for longer than 27 weeks in Canada. Total hours, which is another indicator of where we're at, fell by 0.3%. So not that much, but it was the first monthly decline since January of 2021. So something to watch for as well. And I always like to look at kind of provincially and in terms of metropolitan areas, what's happening within those certain areas. So the province with the lowest unemployment rate right now is Quebec at 4.6%. Remember, 5.9% is the national average. And the province with the highest unemployment rate, and has been for quite a while, probably I think most of 2021, is Newfoundland and Labrador at 11.6%. And Quebec has actually had the lowest unemployment rate for quite a while as well, I think 5 or 6 months in a row. Now, in terms of the cities, the Statistics Canada looks at 33 metropolitan areas and each month. So the city with the highest unemployment rate across Canada is Peterborough, Ontario at 9.5%. And the lowest unemployment rate citywide or metropolitan area is Quebec City, Quebec at 2.6%, which is unbelievable, really 2.6%. And some of the larger cities, of course, we look at Toronto. Toronto is at 7.2% in December, and it was 7.7% unemployment rate in November. So it's come down quite a bit. And Vancouver is at 5.7%. And we have generally seen that the unemployment rate numbers have come down quite a bit by city and by province through the course of the pandemic, really. It's kind of started really in June, July of 2020, and the numbers have been coming down quite a bit each month, chipping away. We had some months where there were some lockdowns at the start of 2021 that caused the unemployment rate to kind of spike back up again, but generally it's been coming down as I've just said. Now, overall 2021 summary of Canada, there were 885,000 jobs that were filled in 2021, and that was up 5% from 2020. And of course, 2020 was a tough year. The public sector, AKA government, is more than 300,000 above the pre-pandemic levels. And the unemployment rate in December, again, 5.9%. The unemployment rate before the pandemic was 5.7%. So we're pretty close to where the unemployment rate was back in February of 2020, the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded in Canadian history, by the way. So in the US, just going to touch on a little bit about the US. The US unemployment rate was 3.9% in December, 4.2% in November. So it has come down. The US measures their job numbers differently than what we do, in that they don't include a certain people, and if they've dropped off looking for a job, or they haven't found a job in a certain number of months, then they will drop those numbers off. But the US created 199,000 new jobs in December. For that, again, to 55,000 jobs in Canada in December. But it's a huge decline from the previous months. There were 530,000 jobs that were created in October, for example. And that was about half of what economists expected for December, 199,000 jobs. Now, job growth in the US has been pretty good in 2021, average of 537,000 jobs. So if your mind is spinning with a few numbers, I'm almost done with the numbers to give you some context, but they had some growth in computer science, computer systems in the US, architectural and engineering services, scientific research and development. And the average hourly employee on private payroll earns $31.31 in the US as well. And the number of people working remotely in the US is only 11%. So compare that to more than double what we have in Canada. So hopefully that wasn't too many painful information, but these are some of the information that you can check out too as well. Now, what you may also want to check out, if you want more information, there's a lot more detail. If you want to analyze this stuff, if you're more analytical, just Google labor force survey. December 2021, later in February, the January numbers will be out, and you can review it. I find it generally kind of interesting because it kind of maps out what's happening. So how are these trends impacting recruiting? Well, labor shortage, more severe and persistent than most forecasters ever anticipated, economists. The workforce participation rate remains below pre-pandemic levels. And that defies expectations for a mass return to work. So people who are looking for jobs, people are interested in finding a job, remains very low. And then you had a whole bunch of people that quit. So why did people quit? Well, there's really two main reasons. And I'll give you some more context as we go along here. But first off, there was a backlog in quits because of the uncertainty that happened because of the pandemic and all the terminations and so on. Many employees who otherwise may have quit their jobs in 2020 postponed their plans from 2020 maybe into 2021. And then second reason, just burnout. You had frontline workers who were facing long hours, difficult conditions. You had burnout from parents, especially predominantly the responsibilities of home was predominantly fell on the woman in the household. And so looking after kids, juggling careers, working remotely. And generally, there was an attitude of, you know what, take this job and shove it. And this is what has transpired over the last little while. So those are the two primary reasons why people have been quitting. Now, you'll probably have seen or you've heard the expression big resignation, great resignation, the big quit. These are all terms that are kind of describing this phenomenon. Now, from my perspective and from our perspective at TorontoJobs.ca, we haven't seen it as much in Canada as they have described it in the States. But in terms of US numbers, 20 million people quit their jobs in the second half of 2021. You had millions of baby boomers who retired early. A lot of people quit in the retail and hospitality industries, and that obviously did happen in Canada here as well. And people moved into other industries and other careers, and they didn't want to wait to find out how it's going to play out. As far as openings, there's 8.9% of openings in hotels and restaurants, 8.2% in healthcare. Overall, 1.5 million open positions in 4 industries in the US: education, retail, healthcare, and hotels and restaurants. And chances are proportionally, we're probably similar to Canada. I haven't been able to find numbers that specifically talk about openings. 350,000 open construction jobs in the US as well. Now, overall, there are 1 million open jobs in Canada, and there are more jobs than people available. So we are starting to see pay increases. We're starting to see changes in benefits and bonuses. Companies are reallocating their benefit plans to accommodate for people working from home. So maybe some of the benefits that existed before the pandemic where really they're not as applicable. People are obviously moving around smaller cities to get more affordable places to live. You'll see that in real estate market in Canada where people are moving to smaller towns, Brantford, Paris, Ottawa, even out east because they can work from home. People change their careers also regardless of government benefits that were out there. Employees definitely want autonomy and flexibility. And from our stats, employees are 2.5 times more likely to apply for a remote job right now. So I'm going to talk about that soon, about how you can help your own recruiting. 1 in 7 jobs are remote right now. And we don't, in terms of new postings, don't see this changing. We don't go backwards. I always feel, we're into a new phase. People think, we're going to go back, or when it's going to go back. I look at it that things don't go backwards, things move forwards. So employees are thinking about working from home now permanently. They have seen it can work. They've set up their homes to accommodate in many cases. And companies also have seen it work, and it can work. So one question you may ask is, how did people afford to quit their jobs? Well, there were a few reasons or a few ways they did. People were locked down during the pandemic and they had time to sit and think and plan what they wanted to do. They saved money. Many received stimulus checks. Many people cut back on their expenses because there weren't social events going on, and people slowed down on purchasing things like work clothes and whatnot. And a lot of people relied on one income. They said, you know what, well, our expenses are down. We're not using our car as much. We're not spending as much. So, can we do one income instead of 2? We don't have to put our kids into daycare. So they figured that out. Some people went back to school. They took courses and they paid by savings. Some started or grew their existing online or other businesses that they had started during their work time. But bottom line is people figured it out and they made it work, and they quit and they ended up staying at home. So tips on how you're going to win the war on talent. Some of these are practical, perhaps some are not, but just really think about these as you're going through. So number 1, I talked about people moving to smaller towns. The companies that are going to win this war on talent are either going to know to reach out into those areas and figure out how to make those jobs remote, or they're going to move their actual physical offices to where their employees may be. Because if you don't, your competitors will. And that is what is happening. Companies are opening up new offices in areas where the labor is. Now, somebody asked me about training and development and how do you do training and development? And I said, you know what? A lot of companies are figuring it out. They're going online. They have a training and development program. It's not in person. So these are changes that are taking place. So that's number one, moving or opening up an office where your employees are. Number two, allow as much flexibility and remote working options as possible. Don't be stubborn. We had a client, they don't want people working from home. I said, you know what? You're going to lose out on potential people because you're not allowing them to work from home. So allow as much flexibility, remote options. Number three, don't be thinking, well, this is what we paid the last person, so this is what we're going to pay the next person, because compensation structures are really wonky right now. Companies are paying more. Some companies are paying more. Some companies can't afford to pay more, and I get it. But don't use, this is what the last person earned as your piggyback or as your number to stay in your mind as this is what we're going to pay the next person. Number four, ask what employees want and people that you're interviewing. What hours do you want? What benefits? What pay? What remote flexible working? Do you want a hybrid option? Do you want to be working in the office? Really, really ask what the employees want. Don't just dictate what you want them to do. It should be a two-way street right now. And unfortunately, some people are stuck in kind of like, hey, we're hiring, we're the employer, we get to dictate. Well, that's not the case in today's market. Now, I've seen time periods where it was an employee's market and where it's been an employer's market, but right now it's really an employee's market. Number five, you can't have the attitude of you're lucky to have this job. People will be turned off by that and they'll pick that up on interviews. Number six, sell the position and the company. Sell what it's all about. Number seven, make it visual. People like to see things, see your office, some pictures, maybe your warehouse, your location, etc. Even you, make it visual. If you have line managers, maybe you record them on a video or ask them to record themselves on a video about why somebody might want to work there. Number eight, if you're looking at working moms or if you're interviewing working moms, primarily parents of younger kids, they have been especially hit hard, as I mentioned earlier, but are slowly coming back to the workforce. So you can give opportunities. You got to be very, very flexible. There's lockdowns, there's school closures. If you're in Ontario, you know that we have school closures coming in, not coming in, where they're back, they're open, they're not open. So, pick up, drop off of the kids, really be flexible, really be flexible. Second last, number nine is promote. Titles can be a really compelling reason for people to not only stay, but also to be hired. So think outside the box about titles. Don't just get stuck in what you had before. And promoting people. We find that companies are promoting people by title, sometimes not even compensation, but by title, they're giving them a higher level title. And finally, number 10 is recruit in areas where unemployment is high. I mentioned Peterborough, Ontario is the metropolitan area out of 33 metropolitan areas across Canada that has the highest unemployment rate. So post some ads in that area in Peterborough, Newfoundland and Labrador. If you can manage to hire people remotely or they can work remotely, Newfoundland and Labrador has had the highest unemployment rate in Canada for many, many months. So those are some of the areas. Now, so other tips, just other comments real quick. The easy answer to winning the war on talent, so to speak, is having complete flexibility where employees work, where they live, and those with a lot of cash or big profit margins are going to win that war on talent. Now, some companies are also offering sabbaticals and flexible schedule. And I know not all companies can afford that, but that's what's happening. And companies with smaller margin, lower wages, in-person workers are going to struggle and are going to be constrained to win this war on talent. But we are seeing that, companies with smaller margins, lower wages, that's where we're seeing generally the most turnover because they don't have as many ways to stem the resignation tide. So I want to thank you for your time. We have a few minutes. We can answer questions. If you want to discuss current trends and how I can help you, or TorontoJobs.ca can help you, or our recruitment team can help you on recruitment, happy to have that conversation really anywhere in Canada. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to share in the chat here my LinkedIn area as well. Also, you can email or call me, and I'm just going to put that in the chat here as well. But yeah, feel free to chat, feel free to call. I'm happy to chat. We also have a lot of great ways that you can stay in touch with TorontoJobs.ca. We have Facebook, and we have Twitter and LinkedIn, so you can follow us as well or join us. I'm just putting them in the chat here as well. But if you're on Facebook Live, as I see there's some people watching on Facebook Live, you can also just check it out on each of the social medias. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. There's, I think, over 500 videos on there on all kinds of topics as well. And we have a new platform as well that we've been working on for the last year and a half. It's called Guhuza, Guhuza, Guhuza.com. Great platform. You can connect with people live on the platform. You can do reference checks and criminal checks and background checks and tests right on the platform. So that's Guhuza.com. And then finally, just some upcoming events that we have, and then we'll just go on to some questions. Thinking outside the box when recruiting is happening on February 22nd. We have another session on April 5th on best practices for recruiting staff, but you can follow along at all our events in the chat here. But if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can check it out at TorontoJobs.ca/news. That's TorontoJobs.ca/news, NEWS. So a lot we covered. I know I went quickly over a lot of numbers. Hopefully you were able to grab some information there that was helpful for you in your organization. Again, if you'd like me to, if you want to talk about more about these, I'm happy to chat about that. And I guess we'll take some questions now. We have a few questions that have been coming in. Hey,
Yep.
Sandra, welcome back.
Okay, yeah, so I'll jump right in here. So we have one question here. What do you suggest for small business who can't, for a small business, who can't afford to provide WFH opportunities?
So work from home. Companies have figured it out. I'm not sure if it's a cost thing, whether it's a small business or a big business, it shouldn't really matter. The cost of it. In fact, it should save you some costs by having somebody working from home. So I'm not sure what afford is, whether it's a cost thing or it can't. You need people in the office to be able to do the work. Maybe that's what that meant. Maybe where it's frontline workers, for example. There are some jobs that won't allow for it. Obviously, you can't have somebody running a restaurant and a restaurant staff who can work from home. It just doesn't work. If you have Amazon can't have people working in a warehouse remotely. So you just won't be able to do that, I guess, right? At the end of the day. But I would say that, try to maybe think of hybrid models. Maybe you can do like 3 days a week at home and reassign maybe some of the work. Maybe that's another way to do it. 2 days in the office, if that makes sense, right?
So maybe perhaps that person, if they want to maybe elaborate on if there's anything specific that they wanted to ask.
For sure. Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next question is, how have employers changed the way they're interviewing?
Yeah. So, that I guess maybe leads into Guhuza a little bit, Guhuza.com that I just mentioned. The reality is people are interviewing almost all the time from a computer, from a Zoom, from some kind of platform. We see it primarily in Zoom, but they're definitely changing the way they're interviewing, remote interviewing. A lot of companies are hiring people without actually ever meeting them in person, that is. A lot of training, onboarding, interviewing, all done online. Many employers have not met candidates in person. So I'd say, those are probably the simplest ways.
Okay, another question here is how can you deal with employees who are currently working in an office, but they can see new people being allowed to work from home?
Let's see. I would say I would say probably, speaking with your current employees, if they're working from an office and they see new people coming on and they've been given the opportunity to work from home, speak with them openly, survey them, ask them what they want, and, be prepared to hear anything in terms of a response. It could be that they are looking for flex hours, they want work from home full time. Maybe they just want a hybrid type model. Maybe they want to work 3 days a week in the office and 2 days at home. So just really speak with them and be really open and honest about it. We're hearing from candidates that, they're not really being told what's going on. There's changes on the fly that are being made. People are not in an office, so nobody's seeing what is happening there.
Do you have time for one more question?
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Okay. So the other question that I have here is, how is Gahuza different and what is it? I know that you mentioned that a couple of times in your session here.
Sure. Yeah. So it is a website that's powered by TorontoJobs.ca. We've been conceptualizing the idea since COVID kind of started, looking back to maybe the summer of 2020. But it basically is a platform that allows live interviews. Candidates are messaged directly on the platform, so they don't apply. You don't have to sort through resumes. Our system does it all. There's no looking at resumes or no looking at piles of resumes and sorting through them. Gahuza does it for you. And TorontoJobs.ca is powering it. So TorontoJobs.ca, we're putting a lot of our effort and resources into this new platform as well. TorontoJobs.ca is still there. You can still post jobs. We still have our recruiting division. You can certainly reach out to us if there are any staffing needs that you have that we can help you with. But yeah, it's another branch, I guess, of the company.
Okay, I posted a couple of links in there, so if anyone wants to check it out. But is there anything else, Marc, that you'd like to add about this session today?
I just want to thank everybody for being here today. We are doing these periodically, these sessions, so feel free to check out future ones, TorontoJobs.ca/news. That's NEWS. There's lots of articles on there too. And I hope that you can subscribe to our various channels and social media, and reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And if there's any staffing needs that we can help you with, by all means, feel free to reach out, or you just want to chat about recruiting or hiring or employees or whatever it is, feel free to reach out to me as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Like I said in the beginning, we are recording this session, so I will get that up onto YouTube so you can go back and review the session. But yeah, other than that, I think that's all, right?
Great job, Sandra, as always.
All right, perfect. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.